What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another War Thunder video. So we're back with some more dev server footage. The dev server went up again on Tuesday afternoon, and I just happened to get enough time to hop on there and get some footage. The biggest addition that they made to the dev server was the British tanks. We finally have the British tanks. Unfortunately, we cannot buy them just yet, so I couldn't give them a proper takeout, you know, against other vehicles. However, we can take them out in a little test drive. And of course, we can always take a look at the armor. We're going to start things off with the Cruiser Mark IV, also known as the A13. This is a Tier 1 battle rating 1.7 light tank. And light is the operative word here. This is not a heavily armored vehicle at all. You'll notice in the armor demonstration here, the thickest armor is in that middle section with all the gun ports. In all the other locations, the armor is either very thin or very flat. There's some sloping in a couple of areas, but really this is not going to be a tank that's going to be very difficult to penetrate. And that's really not a big surprise at this tier. This is a very early tank design. And I actually kind of like it, you know, from just an aesthetics perspective. It's actually a nice little tank. Now, as far as the ammunition types available, you have a pretty limited selection, but that first round is actually pretty good for a Tier 1 1.7 battle rating tank. You should be able to penetrate I would say almost every single tank that I can think of at 1.7. You of course just have to be careful not hit any of the sloped armor on some of the tanks, but generally speaking, I think by and large you should be in pretty good shape here against most tanks. The armor, of course, on this tank is not very good again, but the 2-pounder gun is quite good, as we took that little bugger out in one shot. Got the 303 Vickers machine gun. Not that it's very effective. I don't see the 303 being particularly useful. It actually sounds more fierce than I think it is. With this being a light tank, you notice that it is fairly fast on its feet. Very quick acceleration. Once you get going, you can hit a pretty good top speed. I believe it was 45 kilometers an hour. And one of the nice things that should be mentioned about this vehicle is that the reload rate is incredibly fast. It is a reload rate of 3.6 seconds. No, once you... Whoops, that went a little high. You guys didn't see that, right? Once you get a crew that's fairly high skilled, I would think that reload rate would be down to almost nothing, you know, relatively speaking. So you should be able to fire this gun at a really rapid rate. So you got a tank that goes 40 plus kilometers an hour. You've got a 2-pound gun that has over 60 millimeters of penetration on a flat piece of armor. Then of course you get the reload rate of 3.6 seconds with a completely untrained crew. I think you got a very good tank at low tiers. At 1.7 BR in realistic, I think this is going to be a very effective little tank. But you just have to make sure not to take any serious shots. Obviously, you need to angle yourself. You need to find suitable cover and take advantage of that speed to flank around people, which could be easier said than done because there are some other very fast tanks at this early tier. As for the cost, expect to pay about $11 US. At least that's what the sales page said when I took a look at it before they took it down. You know, after I did that video on the prices of the British tanks, Gaijin pulled all the sales pages of those tanks. So we don't know if in fact those prices are still valid. They could change, but if I were to bet money, I would say that they're going to stay about the same, because the prices aren't that crazy, in my opinion. And up next we have a tank destroyer. This is the M10 Achilles with a 17-pounder, and I absolutely love the look of this little tank. It has that classic American tank destroyer open top design, which obviously makes it vulnerable to any kind of shots from above. But with the Dagor 4.0 engine, this thing looks gorgeous. I love the look of it, that sloped front and everything. It just looks beautiful. Anyway, the M10 comes with a battle rating of 3.7 and has fairly thin armor. Let's be honest. Most tank destroyers tend to be very thin in the armor department, but where they make up for that is the gun, and this is certainly no different. This has the much touted 76.2mm 17-pounder cannon. And let me just say right off the bat, But this thing packs a punch. That 17-pounder, it really does some damage. But it does have a slow reload rate compared to some of the other tanks. It has an 8.1 second reload, which is not very impressive. But once you get that M10 on a highly trained crew, you'll be off and running and in pretty good shape, I would imagine. That being said, what do you say we take this thing out for a little test spin? No, what I want you to do is listen for the gun when it goes off. I'm gonna try to be quiet and let the gun just speak for itself. Because when I heard the gun go off for the first time, I thought there was a thunderstorm breaking out here. Honest to God. You hear that? That there's like a background to it that sounds like thunder to me. That's amazing. When I first fired that thing, I honestly looked outside to see if there was a thunderstorm coming. And I have pretty cheap headphones, so I can only imagine what this sounds like with a really good pair of headphones or really good speakers. Oh my god. Take my money, Gaijin. Just take my money. I'm really contemplating buying this. To be honest with you, when I was doing the video for the British premium tanks, I really had doubts as to whether or not I was going to buy any of these. I may just have to buy this one. That's way too low. But that's to be expected from a guy who plays arcade tanks and not realistic tanks, so I don't have that aim marker to rely on. And they're one shot right to the side. Just utter destruction. A 17-pounder, the battle rating of 3.7. Yeah, I think the M10 is going to be a little terror. T-34s beware. Yeah, this is really going to be a popular tank. I have to imagine. As for the cost, again, we're going off the old sales page, and it was $16.99 US dollars. And just like with the cruiser, that price could change. I would actually be kind of surprised if that price changed, because I think it's fairly reasonable for this tank. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually having fun just taking this thing out for a test drive. I can't wait to take this thing out into an actual battle against real players that are trying to kill me. The obvious weakness of this tank is the armor. It's also not quite as fast as I was hoping for. The acceleration is not impressive. Also, the turret traverse is a little on the slow side. But what you lack with those things, you make up for it with the power of that 17-pounder. Even though it doesn't have APDS rounds, armor-piercing, scarring saber rounds, it still packs quite a little punch. I think it's pretty clear what I think of this tank. What do you guys think? Do you think this is going to be as much fun as I'm making it look? I realize this is only a test battle, but I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And the $17 price tag doesn't seem like all that steep. Let me know in the comment section what do you guys think of this tank. So far, of the two tanks that I've shown off, this and the cruiser, which one do you think you'd be most likely to buy? Honestly, I'd probably lean towards this, but that first one is actually pretty impressive. That gun for a battle rating 1.7. That's pretty impressive. But we're not done. We got two more tanks to show off. We're going to move on to the Firefly Sherman. This is a Tier 3 battle rating 5.0 medium tank. Pretty similar to all the other Shermans that are in the game. There's some additional armor plating added to this tank, but really, this is your classic Sherman, only with a few tweaks. Of course, you can see some tracks there added on the front to add some additional protection to keep the crew alive. The ammo is actually located on the bottom tank rather than on the side. One of the problems with driving Shermans usually, or with the American Shermans, is that the ammo was always located right along the sides, right where you see those liveries on each side of the tank. So all you had to do was penetrate that tank right in that spot, and you'd ammo rack the tank. But instead, what they've done is they've moved all the ammo to the bottom of the tank. So if you want to be able to ammo rack the Firefly Sherman, you're gonna have to aim really low, almost right into the tracks. It's that low. As for the gun, you get the same 17-pounder as what you found on the M10, and that's perfectly acceptable to me. At 5.0, This gun is going to be excellent. One of the problems that I've had with some of the other Shermans, you know, the American ones that are already in the game, is that that 75 or 76 millimeter gun just isn't very strong. It just doesn't penetrate some tanks at certain perspectives. Head on, you can't penetrate everything. That completely changes with this tank. You should be able to penetrate a lot of the tanks that you face at 5.0. I love the sound of the gun. The reload rate is a little bit faster than that of the M10. I believe it's a... Man, that sounds awesome. I believe it's either like 7.5 seconds, which is it's pretty darn good. You're going to be facing a lot of Tigers and Panthers, T-34-85s, and that kind of thing. Having that extra punch from your gun is going to be really important. As far as speed, well, it's a Sherman. Honestly, it's a little bit bigger and heavier than the other Shermans, I believe, and so its top speed is not very impressive. It's also a little slow on the turn. It's actually quite slow on the turn, so maneuverability is not very impressive. But let's be honest, when you drive a Sherman, you're not expecting it to drive like a little Ferrari. It's a heavy medium tank. I could fire this gun all day. I love that thud. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I think at 5.0 battle rating, I think this is going to be a clubber. Even though it's very easy to penetrate, the gun is going to it's going to wreck some tanks. It's going to be a real problem for other tanks to deal with. And you know, that's something I really can't say about the other American Shermans at this battle rating. The other Shermans at this battle rating tend to be thinly armored, relatively speaking, have a mediocre gun. You get the 76 eventually, but that's still not great. It's acceptable. I'll go that far. It's an acceptable gun at this tier. Then of course you get the Jumbo. It's got a weak gun, at least the first one with the 75 millimeter. Then you get to the 76, and still, it's not a great gun. And then the Jumbo's armor, it's a little overstated in my opinion. It's a little overhyped. I know you see that great big massive plate there on the front, but it's not as protective as you would think. And yeah, there's just no way I'm gonna penetrate that mouse. That's just a funny way to end this little thing. As for the price on the Firefly, I expect to pay about $27 US. That was the price on the sales page before Gaijin took it down. As for the last tank, we have to go all the way up to tier 4, where we find the Black Prince, the A43 heavy tank. It's a tier 4, battle rating 6.3. And take a look at this thing. Doesn't it look enormous? Oh my god, this thing is huge. Now, when you think of heavy tanks, you tend to think of something that's going to be really heavily armored. But the Black Prince, which is a Churchill design, it's not that impressive, to be quite frankly with you. The front it's somewhat armored. Sides have very thin armor for this tier. At 6.3, you're going to be facing IS-2s and Tiger 2s, various Panthers, and I believe all of those guns will be able to penetrate this, even from the front. There's actually very little sloping armor on the front. So we've got medium thickness armor on the front, medium thickness armor on the sides. This is going to be chewed up and spat out, I'm afraid. As far as the gun, you get the same 17 pounders before, but you do get APDS, armor piercing discarding saber rounds. So you should be able to kill those big tanks. It's just a matter of whether or not you can avoid being shot by those big tanks. Because we don't actually own this tank, we can't take out the APDS rounds and show those off. So we're stuck with the default rounds, which are pretty darn good. You know, don't get me wrong. We've shown what they can do with those other tanks with side shots. But one of the things I wanted to test out was whether or not this thing was very fast, or for that matter, maneuverable. One of the things I noticed in the stat card is that this thing weighs 50 tons, and the engine only comes with 281 horsepower. How can you not love that gun? I mean, really, how can you not love that gun? And this is just with the default round. Just imagine what the kind of damage you'll be able to deal when you get the APDS round. Because this is a premium tank, you'll be able to get all those extra rounds unlocked right away. You don't have to grind them like you would in most tanks. The brakes, they slow this tank down right away. And that's not that surprising, I suppose, because this thing weighs 50 freaking tons. The brakes don't have to be all that effective. All you have to do is let gravity and friction take work. And in this all this dirt and grass, this thing slows down awfully quickly. The acceleration isn't actually too bad, and you can see that gun, it just tears up everything. We hit 18 kilometers an hour there for just a split second. It's fairly stable there. Nice. I was able to shoot that without having to stop. But you can see the top speed is right around 17 to 18 kilometers an hour all here in the field. If you put this on a road, you'll be able to get a little bit faster top speed. But no matter what surface you're on, it's still going to be a slow tank. It's a very heavy tank, relatively low profile compared to some, but it's that weight and the low speed that I'm concerned about as a would-be purchaser of this tank. You're going to be one of the last tanks into battle. You're going to be in the back of the pack while everyone else is up front, duking it out, fighting over territory. You're going to be slow in the back. And I'm wondering if this tank is going to end up being more like a tank destroyer and kind of hanging in the back, sniping. With the APDS round, you should be able to take out most tanks. I'm not really sure what else to add about this tank. You know, it's big, it's slow, it's got average, if not mediocre, armor at this tier. It does have a nice gun, though. I have to admit that. It is a very nice gun. That 17-pounder is very powerful, but the turret traverse is quite slow, as you can see there at the end. Let me know what you guys think of this tank. Is it worth the $40? You planning on spending your hard-earned money on it? What kind of role do you think this is going to actually have in the game? That about wraps it up, guys. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. And of course, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Take care, guys.